I am taking part in a booktube challenge created by Base Reads called the Reader's Gauntlet. Now, as most of the readathon kind of challenges here on booktube, basically what you are given is prompts that you have to fill out with the books that you read. I mean, technically you should read targeting uh, those specific challenges, but what I think is best as of now, like the beginning of the year, so the beginning of the challenge, is read whatever I like and try to use those books in those specific challenges. And then when the year goes on and I am starting to struggle with really adapting my reads with the prompts given, I think I will start targeting my reading towards the challenges that I need to complete and that I struggled with in the past. I am, of course, not going to list every prompt and every challenge in this. So, what I'm going to do is share with you my reading vlogs that I filmed throughout the month and quickly explain the challenges that I use these books for and how I use these books for. Does that make sense? Okay, so here we go. I am so excited. I started The Will of the Many by James Islington or Islington, I don't know, but I am really enjoying it. It's a huge book. It's around 700 pages, which is going to count for a challenge, by the way. And even though it is this long, I am flying through it. Like I started 3 days ago. I mean, it's not like it's big progress, but like I feel like I'm flying through it. I'm 30% in right now, and the world is just so interesting. The world building is so interesting. It has some of the typical fantasy difficulties to like start really getting into the story. It's you know it's building and building all the time constantly, and so yeah, I'm really excited to move forward though. So I am around 70% of The Will of the Many, and all I can say, because there's a lot to say, but what I can say now is that I am so scared because I've grown to love some of these characters that I'm fearing that something is gonna happen, and if something does happen to them, I will probably just die. So that, and also James Islington, your twists. Oh my god, I've been gagged so many times. Honestly, I've been gasping and just like looking like a dumbass reading these pages. Really, really good so far. I am really, really enjoying it. I was expecting a little, a little fruitness from this, but there's none so far at all. So that bothers me a little bit. But it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Yesterday I finished The Will of the Many and I need to talk about it. So I think I did mention that I was really enjoying the book. It took me quite a while, I think. I mean, it's the 16th of March, so it took me around 2 weeks to finish this book. It is 700 pages, a little longer, 720 pages actually. So it's understandable. But I also wanted to savor it. I did not feel any pressure in finishing it. I sometimes do. I sometimes want to kind of read as many books as I can because like there's so many books that I want to read in so little time. So I do consider my time very valuable on that aspect. In this case, I really wanted to savor it. I wanted to take my time with it, and even like the the sensation of not really understanding anything at the beginning of a fantasy book, that was really common, especially in this book, because the magic system is really complex and the world building, and there's a lot of unsaid things that of course you are to learn throughout the novel. And so there were many episodes in which I had to go and reread what I read because I was not really understanding it or like envisioning it. But I thought that I appreciated that. I took the time to do that, which is great. I really, really appreciated it. About the book itself, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. That is because I did feel like the pacing got really weird at some point, because for like 75% of the book, it was slow, but not in a bad way. It was just a slow pacing. And then around that mark, it started getting unnecessarily fast, and I was not really into the story at some point, because everything was just like everything was happening and I was not feeling any of it. Um, but in the end, I really did love the twist that everybody was talking about. I was not expecting that, or better, I was not expecting it in the way that it happened. I really, really appreciated the ending, all of it. I wish I could talk more about it, but it is very spoilery, and I don't want to ruin the experience for anybody. But I love the characters, especially Aiden and Calidus. Really, really love them. They did get a little spot in my heart. The main character, was weird sometimes, because he felt weird. I don't know how to say. And some of them I really, really was not connecting with, such as Emissa, for example. I also didn't feel the need for any romantic storyline in this book. I felt that was really forced and very flat. It was not needed. I was not interested in it, and I even wanted to like skip through the scenes that were taking place around this subject. I didn't, but I wanted to. I am really excited about reading The Strength of the Few. And in my review on Goodreads, I did say that I was gonna take my time with it because I needed a break. It was such a like an immersive read and in such a long time that I wanted to wait before reading the second one, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. It's been like a day and a half, almost 2 days, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. So I'm thinking of getting a physical copy of this. I don't know. Um, but I also want to read The Strength of the Few as soon as possible. But I don't also want to have to wait like too much for the third book in the series, which is gonna come out next year. So maybe I'm just gonna wait. Maybe I'm just gonna wait. But I did really love this. As you could see, the first book that I finished in this month, which took me quite a few weeks, I think around like 2 weeks, was The Will of the Many by James Islington. And other than the fact that I love this book so much and I cannot wait to go further in the series, of course, I need to tell you what prompts I use this book for. So I allowed myself, I don't know if this was the creator's will, but I allowed myself to use one book for maximum 2 prompts. And the first challenge that I used this book for was the by the oh, I need to move. I need to move so you can see the graphic. As you can see, they're a little different from the past 2 videos. That is why I did not really like how Canva adapted the original graphics given by the creator to the color that I wanted. They didn't really look nice. They were nicer in the original color, but I also wanted to add a little bit of myself. So what I did is just like get rid of the of just the background, kept the original graphics, and put a color that I like. That's all I did. So the first challenge that I used this book for was the by the hundreds. Now the by the hundreds challenge kind of uh, challenges you to read a book for every 100-page increase. Is that English? I don't think it is. Basically, you have to read one book for every 100 pages, like one book for 100 pages, and then a book with 200 pages, and so on. This book has around 600 something pages, so I felt confident in adding that in, bringing the full count to 3 out of 7, I think. The second prompt I used the Will of the Many for was the trope tracker challenge, which of course kind of indicates 6 fantasy based tropes that you can find in fantasy books. You can adapt these to your liking, so like to your specific genre that you want to choose, I didn't really know anything about tropes. In my era, tropes were a bad thing. They were negative to like for a book to have tropes. But now times have changed and apparently they're a good thing and something that attracts you to read a book. So I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna struggle a little bit for a few of these, but we're trying. So in the Will of the Many, there are trials that the character has to complete. So I feel like that's perfect. And that brings us to 2 out of 6.
So I started The Definitions by Matt Green. This is a very short dystopian novel that I had on my TBR for quite a bit and wanted to jump into after The Will of the Many. It is a dystopian. It is about this this group of people in this rehabilitation center after they've been after basically humanity has been affected by this virus that deletes all of the memories. And I think it's mostly the episodic memory, so they don't remember who they are, what they like, their habits, or their name. And so they are put in the center that helps them to get their memories back and then reintroduce them to society. I think I'm very at the beginning of it. What I can say is that I love the writing style. It's so unique, and the fact that a lot of the words are like gradually learned by the character is it's so interesting. And it made me realize how not realize it made it so much clearer that I love reading about language and how language can be exploited in a fantastical or like a dystopian aspect. I felt this during my read of Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, and I'm feeling this now, and I think I'm gonna love Babel just for that. I finished The Definitions by Matt Green, and I was left a little bit unsatisfied. The book really reminded me of I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. In like it's just so similar in so many ways, and somebody pointed it out on Goodreads, like in the reviews, and like never a statement felt so real. It was very interesting at first. Like my attention was taken, it was caught, like the flow was going, and then it just flattened a little bit. Unfortunately, it all kind of went a little boring, and I started to not care about the characters. I started not to care about the story. I was still curious about the story. I was curious on answers and what the author wanted to, get to, like what was his final idea. And let's let's just say I was left very hungry. I'm really sad about this because I had great expectations. I love dystopian novels, and the premise was great. And honestly, never read such a beautiful prose. Honestly, just such good writing. Matt Green, I am looking out for you. I'm looking out on other stuff that you wrote, and I want to read more because that writing was just beautiful. Oh Lord, it was beautiful. And the allegories, and again, as I mentioned in the previous clip, like the growing of knowledge in language and how the language was used in kind of exploring human interactions and one's nature and the relationships. It was just like it was peak. It was just so good. And unfortunately, I was left disappointed in the story itself. So I ended up giving it a 2.75 stars, which sounds really harsh. But I do think that the book was just not made for me. Maybe I will it will grow on me in a bit, like what happened with I Who Have Never Known Men. because they're very, very similar. If you've read that and loved it, I think you would love the definitions. But unfortunately, that was not my case. I was also kind of disappointed with the other book. It did grow on me, so maybe there's that chance, maybe. But other than that, unfortunately, that was not a highlight for me.
The definitions was a revelation, not because I really liked the story, but I think the author did a fantastic job, had a great first impression on me. That's why I wanted to choose this book for the New Authors Challenge. Basically, you have to read from three authors that are new to you. Um, I want to use this prompt as new authors that I liked and that I want to read more from. I think Matt Green is an exceptional writer, and I do want to read more from him. This specific book was not the vibe for me. It did not satisfy me, but I am looking forward to reading more from him. And so I think that is 1 out of 3. As the second book that I used this book for was the series Staircase. I'm not even gonna count how many books I have to read for this because I don't want to panic. Let's just put it that way. And I'm also struggling to find books to fill this with, and I hope I can find some alternatives. But I did use this for the standalone box because it is an auto conclusive story.
I just started and finished a novella. I think it is. I don't know if it's called a novella or a short story, but it is called As a Courtesy by Borok Medusa. I was given this as an arc thanks to NetGalley, and I published my review just now, and I did not love it. I did not like it either. I kind of hated it actually. Gave it 1 star. So the premise was very interesting, and that's what drew me to this book. I mean, I will call it a book, but you know what I'm saying. It's a 40 pages book. I read it in a day. The premise was of this guy who becomes a voyeur. He starts a business on Airbnb, and he watches people through a double-sided mirror. Honestly, cool, eerie, creepy. That's what I was looking for. And I honestly was very disappointed, first of all, with the writing style. Not only did I not like it, I really think that I was just not the target audience. She has published, like the author has published various books or novellas or short stories, again, I don't know how to call it, all along the same kind of vibes. If people like them, then I don't think I'm just the target audience for them. The writing style was, to me, very, very repetitive and very cringeworthy. Basically, the book is divided in short stories, and all of them are of a different guest that, you know, like of the Airbnb. And most stories were uninteresting and unimpactful, uneventful. I think that the character of Malcolm, who was the main character, was just not well written at all. He is portrayed as a very manipulative kid and a very controlling kid. He kind of manipulates psychologically his brother to think that he's adopted, and his best friend to have his first heartbreak. So he's portrayed as this manipulative person who then becomes somebody who's completely different and completely unrelated to what we are given as a backstory and as a motive of why he's like that. Because he becomes a voyeur who just sits back and has no control over these people and does not even try to. He does not try to manipulate them or to scare them or to have any sort of fun. He just sits back and annotates what he sees with no meaning, with no final motive, with no connection to how he was portrayed in the first section of the book. Aside from when he invites over his brother and he also like messes up with his head, again, that made sense, written in a very particular way that I did not enjoy, but that made sense. Otherwise, I don't think it had any connection with anything. Um, the 1 star was basically just a gift because I did audibly gasp at the last section of the book. But again, when there's like a police investigation going, and I'm sorry for the spoilers, the police officer is perceived from the main character as somebody who has a great experience under their belt. But at the same time, if the guy is accused of having a double-sided mirror, you're not even gonna knock on the fucking walls. What kind of police officer are you? Or like a detective even? That's even worse, right? Anyways, yeah, just very much not for me.
As a Courtesy by Baraka Medusa was a very short book, and um, I was able to binge read it. And luckily, there is a challenge that, of course, challenges you to binge read a book. There are three in total, and this was my first. So we're gonna add that to the board. And the second prompt that I used book for was the new release board, the new release challenge, because this specific novella came out in March. I was looking forward to another book during this month that came out in March. I didn't get to, but maybe I will later on. So this fills out the March spot, bringing us to 3 out of 12, which is great.
I started Ruin and Rising, which is book 3 in the Grisha trilogy. If you don't know what the Grisha trilogy is about, basically it's a YA fantasy series in which there are like it's a world kind of inspired by Russia, and it is divided in ordinary people and Grishas. Grishas have powers. Some of them control the wind, some of them control water, etc. And Alina, the main character, she finds out she has one of the rarest powers the Grishas have. And so it's kind of her journey. I can't really go too much into details, but I tend to forget how good the twists are in this series. Also, Lee Bardugo's writing is really good. Even though the vocabulary is not really accessible for being a YA, in my opinion, especially if you're reading in a second language. But anyways, I am really enjoying this. I'm around 45%, so this is kind of a late update, but I am enjoying it. It's kind of hard to get through because the fucking, oh my god, chapters are so long. We're talking 30 pages long. And so every reading session for me is just one chapter, which is pretty good progress in the book, but it makes the reading experience a little heavier than most. So that's my only complaint, if it's really a complaint. I don't think it is. I am very happy to report that I have finished Ruin and Rising by Lee Bardugo. Third installment in the Shadow and Bone series. I love this one. I think this was my favorite book out of the three. First of all, look at this cover. Amazing, right? Very, very good. I thought the ending was perfect, exactly how it was intended. I would have changed one small thing, but that's not my job. And I recognize that. I'm still happy with the ending. The epilogue was just so good. I love epilogues. I love epilogues and I love clear endings. And I did throw some shade. What did I love about this book? I loved the twists. I think that the twists are what differentiate this trilogy from all the others. Not that the others don't have twists, but I doubt that they're as good as the ones in this series. I have always been caught by surprise. I have never once called it. I might be stupid, I might be naive, but I think these were just incredibly written. I love the characters. I think the characters were just so well-rounded, so human, and so lovable as well. Even in their worst times, I think. Very believable characters. The story was very entertaining. One thing I did not love about this was the long-ass chapters. Tell me why we need a chapter 30 pages long. And that's not just one chapter, it's most of them. So it's kind of a weird choice. because it does make the reading experience a little frustrating and much slower than I would have liked it to, but definitely not a uh, deal breaker. I think the story and the characters made it up to me. So overall, I decided to give this 4.5 stars, which is the highest rating I gave this series so far. I'm really excited to go into Six of Crows and like the Six of Crows duology, but I think I'm gonna hold on to that and kind of like sit with this for a little.
The choices for Ruin and Rising came pretty quickly to me because it's been years of me admiring these covers, all of them, specifically this one though, and having read it now, I can finally use it. I can finally put this to use. In fact, I used this book for two challenges which are cover based. The first one is the Rainbow Challenge. It is a challenge that, of course, prompts you to read one book for every color of the rainbow. This one is predominantly red, and so that's the reason why I put it into the red spot, bringing us to two out of the seven colors. And the second prompt I used this book for was the Pretty Cover Challenge. I am in love with this cover, and I think it deserves a spot there. Which brings us to two out of three. We're almost done with that.
So I was not very good at updating in the past few days, because a few days ago, like I think 3 days ago, I picked up If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga. I finished this yesterday. I kind of binged it during my train ride. I got back home and I just didn't film, okay? Whatever. But I have loved this. I am a fan of this and I'm so happy I picked it up from the library. I ended up giving this 4.75 stars. Okay, so this is a dark romance kind of vibe, but I don't like to call it that way because this really is so much more than that. It is the story of a girl who decides after graduation to go to Egypt for the first time because she has like both her parents are Egyptians. She is an immigrant of second generation. She's never been to Egypt. And so she decides after a very specific moment in her life to move to Cairo and to try to reconnect with these roots. And she then meets a boy from a village near Cairo. I don't know if it's near Cairo, but it's a village in Egypt, and she falls in love with him. And we get both perspective in a love that becomes abusive, and this was very impactful for me. It has brought a lot of feelings during the whole thing. I was kind of confused at first because you do get both perspectives, but you don't realize. I mean, I'm sure if you take a lot of it like attention to it, you do realize. But it took me about 30 pages to realize that two different people were speaking, and I was like really confused because like things were not adding up, or like they were out of characters, or I don't know. Anyways, I finally understood that, and it is divided in three parts. The first one is kind of in these really small chapters. It is always starting with a question, which some of them I really, really appreciated. One of them is, if everyone you knew jumped off a bridge, wouldn't you believe you could fly? And if a man's anger is lovelier than his loveliness, what kind of ending do you expect? I feel like this is, I don't know, it touched me in ways I was not expecting, and I really connected with the story for various reasons. Not only the most explicit one, but just a bunch of stuff. And then the second part is kind of told in a more like insightful way. There's a lot of footnotes about Egyptian culture and traditions, which were really interesting to me. And then the third part is what really brings it all together. And this is what drew me to this book in the first place. I've heard about this book for the first time from Frankie's Shelf. It is a creator on YouTube who I just like adore. I could watch them for hours. But they were like talking about this third part as like this big moment of like understanding and just like surprised, not surprised, but like of completion. And that really drew my attention, caught my attention. And I agree. That was just like the best part. And it was just so creative and just so good, so well written. I really, really loved it. And yeah, I kind of want to dig into this author's uh, backlog a little bit more. I don't know if she has one, but well.
And finally, the last book that I finished in this month, If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English. This did have a really pretty cover, but I didn't want to reuse the same prompt. And so I mainly focused on, first of all, the author's name. Now, I did this before. When the author's name and surname started with the same letter, I'm going to use it for the alphabet challenge. Yes, I will. There are 23 books that I need to read for this challenge, so I want to fill it out as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And so the author, Nur Naga, is perfect for the letter N, bringing us to 7 out of the 23. And aside from that, what prompted me to read this book in the first place was hearing about it from two specific booktubers. One of them is surely Frankie's Shelf. I was mesmerized by their description of this book, and I immediately added it to my TBR. And the other two is Lala. Now I don't remember if like which of them was the first to kind of like to recommend this to me indirectly, of course, but I am sure that this was in fact inspired by some either of them talking about it. So I'm going to use this for the booktube challenge, which prompts you to read a book that is recommended or highly rated by booktubers that you like. This marks the end of the March video. I am so terribly sorry for this being so late. To myself first, and second of all, I do hope that you have enjoyed my company because I have definitely most certainly enjoyed yours. Thank you very much for your attention. I will see you next month with another great video filling up holes. Goodbye.